Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome back to This is a Revolution, the podcast dedicated to Revolution Pro Wrestling weekly. The only place on the web that you're going to get this weekly is right here with myself, Cromulent George, and my good friend, Dave the Mark. Dave, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Enjoying the wind down towards the summer holidays that comes as being a teacher. Especially given that half my teaching timetable is made up of kids who are currently not in our school because they're either on work experience or have left for the summer. So
Wonderful.
very much enjoying that and getting over the trials and tribulations of trying to get to the 229 on Sunday, which was stressful.
Yeah, you had a fun time with that, didn't you?
I did, mate. I did. Do you know what? I'm 37. I learned to drive when I was a bit late learning to drive. I think I must have been 21, 22. So I've probably been driving 15 years, and like I drive a lot because all the Rev Pro shows that I go to, I drive to. Never had any issue. Never had an accident that was, other than like sort of thing that happens in a car park. I've never had an accident on a motorway or anything like that. And flying down the right hand, the outside lane, and pop, there goes my tyre. And you're then just that moment of like, oh my god, my car's suddenly stopping and all the other cars are going really fast and I've got to get myself over to the left-hand lane safely without causing an accident, and then I've got to work out what on earth I do. And then just to really like throw me under the bus, the heavens opened up and I got absolutely drenched. But yeah, all is good. One thing that I've learned from it and will absolutely kind of advocate to everybody: have a spare tyre, have a spare wheel in your boot. I didn't even realise it was there because I'd forgotten all about it because my car's so old. It saved me an absolute fortune in like breakdown issues, and it saved me an awful lot of time because I was at 229 by about 1:30. We were going to go for lunch first, and we didn't get to do that. But other than that, that's why I was heading down early. But other than that, all's well that ends well, and we got to watch a cracking show. So yeah, happy days, mate. How's your week been?
Yeah, all good, mate. They were near as strenuous and as stressful as yours was with getting there to the TT9 and whatnot. Nice chilled weekend, up on the train, back on the train. Nice KFC at the end as well, despite the fact of having a Nando's at lunch. Still hungry on the way back, so I thought there's a KFC right opposite Waterloo. I'm just going to dip in there, and yeah, it was nice. Got home very tired, as I, as you know, hit the 40 mark earlier this year. So if I am just out or not in bed by like 11 o'clock at the very latest, no matter what time I get up the next day, I didn't get up till nearly 9 o'clock, and my body was just like, "What are you doing?" Despite the fact I had my 8 hours, it just didn't want to do it. So no, all good. And then nice day off work. So yeah, back to work and into the normality again. Yeah, all the norm stuff coming up. But I suppose, like you said there, we got a good show, and over the next few weeks, I know it's going to be a quiet few weeks for the most of July until right to the end. But after that, for me, it all goes into wrestling mode in August, and not just Rev Pro, but everything. So I'm gonna enjoy these quieter weeks while we've got them as well, my friend.
Yeah. Did you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
Did I watch How I Met Your Mother? Yes, my friend, I did. So
I can't remember what time he used to say nothing good happens after. Was it
2 a.m.? 2 a.m.
Mate, so I used to believe in that. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. When I was like, I don't know, early 20s. As I approached 30, it became nothing good happens after 1 a.m. In my early 30s, it was nothing good happens after midnight. And now, at 37, nothing good happens after 11 p.m, mate. Yeah. If you're not in bed by 11 p.m, you're paying for it the next day. And mate, honestly, if you, when you have kids, they know that you're tired. And it's like they have this sixth sense of being like, oh, Daddy didn't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning. Daddy's got a late night. I know, I'll wet the bed at 4 a.m. and he'll have to change my sheets. And you're like, oh my God, right, I just need some sleep before I go to work and spend the day with 1,300 teenagers. But no, little boy wet in his bed at 4 a.m. and
Oh,
the missus being sparked out, and you're like, he's woken me up, I'm awake. Do I pretend to be asleep and let him wake her up, or do I do the right thing? I chose the wrong option. I chose the right thing. I regretted it immediately. I should have just pretended to still be asleep. But all's well that ends well. It was an alright day at work, and today's been even more chilled. So happy
nice. Well,
days.
you did the right thing, my friend. You absolutely did the right thing. And there was another thing I didn't know we had in common was How I Met Your Mother. Now, for me, that was a show that I got into probably my late 20s, which, but when I say that, it makes it sound ages ago. It wasn't. It was just literally just over 10 years ago. But I managed to get like a VPN and managed to get onto American Netflix for the first time. I was like, oh, you give this show a go. And it takes me a while before I can get into like a new sitcom or something, generally. So I was kind of with this, I was like, right, I'm going to give it 3 episodes, see if it grabs me. And it got me right from the start. Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when I get like a sitcom or something I like, I have trouble sleeping generally, right? If I go to bed and try to go to sleep, I'm lying there going, when am I going to fall asleep? When am I going to sleep? And then if I put music on, I go, oh, 3 songs have gone, 4 songs have gone, and I know roughly how long the songs are going to last. So I concentrate too much on that. So I've had this really unhealthy kind of habit for as long as I can remember of you like falling asleep to a TV show, or when I'm at home and I'm doing stuff on the laptop, having a TV show on in the background. I am both curious and petrified if Netflix ever give you the ability to see how much you've watched a show, because I honestly easily reckon I've watched all of the episodes of How I Met Your Mother probably over 200 times each. Easily. Because I just have that when I'm at home and the missus out playing badminton or something like that. I'm on the laptop doing something, but I just like noise behind me. So I've got that on in the background, or I'm listening to it as I fall asleep. And for some reason, if it's a show that I know inside out, I'm not concentrating on it too much. So I'm not like, how long is this going to last for? And I've been like that with Modern Family, The Simpsons, and my one at the minute I've been doing for about near enough the last year is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And again, I reckon I've watched that hundreds upon hundreds of times. So yeah, I get like really in with these shows because it just helps me get to sleep as well. So, but yeah, How I Met Your Mother does not get anywhere near enough praise these days because of a very shite ending. But yeah,
Yeah, I can completely like relate to all of that. When I was a teenager, I always used to fall asleep to Friends. Would literally put Friends on the old like VHS tape every night and just like fall asleep to that. Me and my missus have been together for like ever. So we've been together for 18 years. She was 18, I was 19 when we met. We've been married for 12 years, been together 18, and neither of us sleep very well. Well, neither of us can sleep in silence. So when we go to bed, it's like a little bit of like this kind of unspoken race to get a podcast on. But we also like routine, and we both like we get into stuff and we listen to it. So I'm currently listening, and I know you know this because I put you onto it. I'm currently listening to the A Squared podcast, which is a podcast that Andy Quilden did with Andy Boy Simmons before COVID, and she is listening to the Ricky Gervais podcast from when he was on, I think he was on XFM, and it's him and Stephen Merchant and Cole Pilkington. And it's literally like, who is gonna like send us off to sleep each night, whether it's gonna be Andy Quilden or whether it's gonna be Cole Pilkington. And it just makes me laugh so much because it's literally like, we don't talk about it, but we both know that whoever gets the podcast on first, that's the one that stays on, because we'd never tell the other one to turn it off. It's just like this little race every night when we get in bed.
It's really funny because me and my other half, so much like you and your other half, have been together a long time. We've been together 20 years this December. We were 19 and 21 when we got together. So, but in the whole time, like when she goes to sleep, she needs to sleep in silence. She is not a person that can sleep with noise going on around her. So that was like why I used to like have an iPod on, and she could hear the sound through the headphones, and that would wake her up. So that would also cause not some rifts or anything, but it would be like she'd be stirring because I know she's stirring. I'm like, oh god, here we go. We went years through the summer months where she's not going to watch this back, right? So I can say this absolute psychopath would not have a fan on in the bedroom during the summer months. I would literally just go to fall asleep in the heat. I'm like, wait, what? And it's only within like the last 3 years I've said, no, we've got to have a fan. I've got this little cube fan that we have in the room, and even then, I have to go and put it on about 10 minutes before she gets into bed. So when she gets into the room, that noise is already there and she's already acclimatized to it. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I bought like a little sleep mask, which is like it's like your little normal like face eye masks, but it's got little Bluetooth speakers in them, so you can put them over your face and then you can just sync it up. So I sync mine up to my phone, and every night I get into bed, put Brooklyn Nine-Nine on, and I don't have to watch it. I can just listen to it because if I put on like a podcast or an audiobook, I then get really like, but I want to listen to this. I've not listened to this before. I need to listen to this, and I worry that I get lost where I am. So yeah, this is the insight to middle aged men and their sleeping habits. Wonderful. Well, without further ado, shall we crack on with that rather great show that we both went to see on Sunday?
Mate, when it awesome. Before we do, a question for you. Obviously, it was your first trip to the 229. What'd you make of it
The
as a venue?
229 was amazing. I like I said to you, I've seen it on TV so many times, and I was like, "What's this going to be like?" Like, it looks cool. It looks like there's a lot going on. It looks like a good bunch of people in there. Um, the thing that really took me, and I don't know why it did, because I should have realised coming in, but I expected to come down in the other way into the venue, which I know those stairs are used by the wrestlers coming in to the venue, but I was expecting to come over that side. So like when I came down to the bar, I was like, "Oh, I'm back to front where I was expecting." Um, but yeah, it all looks kind of, you kind of walk around, it all looks about the same. It was just really weird. I'm like, normally like the camera's there and I'm looking at Andy Quilden from there, but I'm just sat here and I can see him over there. And yeah, the merch tables were quite nice where they were outside. Um, Really self-contained. Like it, it doesn't, in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel any bigger than say Southampton as venue, but I think because it's a bit wider, it feels massive in there as well, which was, yeah, it was really odd, but loved it. Great bunch of people in there, really nice kind of queuing outside, chat with people. Very different to the Southampton queue. If you want to see a bunch of reprobates, go to Southampton. Anything goes there. Um, but yeah, it was a great experience, and I said to you, I know what's going to happen, Dave. I'm going to get the bug for it. I'm going to go, I want to come back because I'm a nerd, right? When it comes to, well, I'm a nerd about a lot of things that I love. But one of the things I'm really a nerd about is venues, right? So I love going to unique venues, whether that's massive stadiums that look different, right? Because I don't like all the different arenas, right? The thing that I love when I go to an arena show, the thing that I love, unless it's an arena that's a bit different, I'm going out checking what are the food options. That's what I care about. Food and merch. Food and merch. That is it. When I'm going to like a smaller venue like this, or I'm going to some of the bigger stadiums, I want to go and have a look at this stadium or this smaller venue. And I love like the brickwork look in there and all that sort of stuff. It just sets it apart from everything else. And it is a bit similar to, in some ways, to Southampton in that regard as well, because that's got a bit of character about it as well, with the balcony over the top and all of that stuff. So yeah, and that card went a long way to convincing me it's worth coming back, because London always gets, I mean, Everett gets a good card. Let's not beat around the bush, but London, especially for those 229 shows, gets a really good card. And then, even by those standards, it got a really, like, really great card. And so that was nice. I love the fact I got to meet Luke Jacobs, because everyone who knows I'm a massive fucking fanboy for Luke Jacobs, and I even told him that I didn't care. I had absolutely no shame. The guy was absolutely sound. He absolutely judged me, and his face judged me for the fact that even I said to him, "You're my favorite, even though you're a City supporter." He went, "Oh, it's all about England just now anyway, mate, don't worry." And I went, "I'm a Scotland supporter." And he just looked at me and went, "How the fuck does that happen?" And then we got a nice photo together. But it was really nice to actually get a chance to chat to Luke. Got a bit of merch off of him, and yeah, I hope to see him at the merch tables a bit more in future because it was really nice. But the overall experience couldn't have been better. Met some really lovely people in the venue. Some people I'd never met before, and you kindly introduced me to. Some people who just turned around to me and went, "Oh, I listened to the podcast," and that still blows my mind a little bit, especially when one of them is Zozaya. But it just blows my mind that all these people are coming together. Oh, really like what you're doing here, and it's like, these people are listening, and these numbers that I'm seeing on YouTube, which thank you all for listening, checking out, watching. This last episode, episode number 3, is on course to matching the total view so far set for episode number 2. It's been our second best performing video day on day, with the exception of the very first one that we put out, which, of course, a top 10 list. Everyone's going to watch a top 10 list that quickly. But we are, I think, just over 100 views on that first episode as well. So we are breaking all kinds of boundaries here. But yeah, that's just going off topic. But it's nice to see that those numbers that I'm looking at on a screen going, "Oh, this is really interesting," are actual real people there, all with their different quirks, whether it's someone who's offering us little retro key rings or someone showing us the trading cards they make. It's like, this is just so cool. So yes, very, very long-winded way of saying I will be back in London for sure, and I'm really eyeing up that 1st of September spot.
Yeah, shout out to Catherine with her key rings and to Rob with his trading cards. They're absolutely wicked, and I always love the fact that people feel comfortable to like just come up and chat to me at shows, and the fact that you've kind of trained yourself to be like such an easy guy to chat to and such an open and like easygoing guy. You're getting the exact same treatment. One of my favourite things about the 229 is the fact that they sell Guinness Zero, which is literally like, an absolute revelation to me at a wrestling show. It's the only place, actually. It's the only show that I go to that I have a beer at, or a non-alcoholic beer in my case. But yes, I do love that. And you're right, like the people there are absolutely lovely, and it's got like a real vibe to it. The 229 it always does. I always refer to the guys. Only recently to their faces, but I've always referred to the guys who sit on the hard cam side as the 229 choir, which I'm really glad that they took in a positive way, because they just add so much to every card. Like it means that everyone there's all sorts of different people at wrestling shows, aren't there? There's people that like to be really loud and get involved in all the chants. There's some people that just like to be really quiet and just sit and watch and sit and study it, and it's when you've got a nice mix of that, you can then have a really nice atmosphere, and everybody can enjoy it the way they want to enjoy it. And I think the 229 does that really, really well.
Absolutely, yeah. The thing that I noticed straight away, and I sent her a DM afterwards, was Charlie from Wrestle Purist and her group. Every time Connor Mills comes out, like you said, over in that section, it is just like, I want to go sit over there with those guys. Because no offense to you guys, I love sitting with you guys, but it's like it looks like they're having a great party over there as well. So, and yeah, it's great to add to the atmosphere. But Dave, I'm going to tell you the one thing I didn't enjoy about 229. There was literally only one thing: £3.40 for a can of Coke. What the hell is that? Even by venue standards. So next time, I am going to be taking one of these with me. I'm going to be sneaking that in and getting myself a water because I'm cheap. And if I'm going to spend money at these venues, it's going to be at the merch stand with the wrestlers instead, I think.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, mate. It's London prices, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, loved it. Now, before we crack on with kind of our thoughts on the card, just wanted to take a moment. As I mentioned, kind of how we've been doing really well with the views, and thank you again to everyone getting involved, whether it's by sharing, commenting, just liking things. That's been really helpful. So, guys, if anyone could, I'd love it if you could subscribe on YouTube at Cromulent Wrestling. Go onto Spotify, go onto Apple, go onto all these random litany of audio services that I'm not even aware of that exist. There's all of these that connect up to. Go download. If you can, just subscribe to it. Even if you don't listen to the episodes and you watch on YouTube, just subscribing would be a massive, massive help. If it gives you the option, especially with Spotify and Apple, if you can rate it, if you can leave a comment, and please give us that 5-star review. But if you could do that for us, that would be marvelous, because it would just boost us up, get out to more people, which means we can just sit here and say, hey, look at all these people we're reaching. I'm going to flash up right now. You should now see all of our different social media handles. Please go and have a look. We are on pretty much all of the different platforms across myself, across Dave, and the channel. Bear with me, I'm a 40-year-old man who's not used some of these platforms before, so we are slowly getting a presence out on there with things, certainly from my side, but we want to get more out there on the channel as well. So just put our first short and reel out there, which was us discussing who we thought would be good for Queen of the Ring. Dave summing that up nicely about Sapphire Reed. That is available on YouTube, on Shorts, and on other platforms as well. Even got myself on TikTok. I'm pretty sure that being a 40-year-old man and putting something on TikTok, I put myself on the list somewhere. But we're here. We're trying this. This isn't about any kind of money or anything like that, guys, because as Dave said last time, we are a niche within a niche within a niche that's in a tiny niche. However, all we want to do is do what we can for this RevPro community, which in the last couple of weeks especially has shown me a lot of love. I've seen the love it showed to Dave, showed me a lot of love, and I still couldn't quite get over just the people that would come in just chatting away to me at the weekend. So thank you to all of you. I can at times, even though you wouldn't believe this being on a podcast, I do sometimes suffer thinking, these people are going to think I'm really weird. And hey, if you're sitting there thinking I'm really weird, cool, I probably am. But people just come in chatting, having those conversations, it just makes these shows an even more fun time. So yeah, please subscribe, share, tell all your friends, tell Andy Quilden to pay us £5. That would be perfect. Right. So Dave, where did we start the show? With all these matches, where did we start?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, so one thing for me is what I loved about this show was the fact that the formula, like the format, just feels like it really has been teared up recently. And I used to kind of talk about like the coveted fourth spot where often you'd get a Luke Jacobs kind of hoss fight. You were often open with a Robbie X match. That you could kind of, when you saw a card, if you've been to enough shows, you could kind of work out the order things were going to go in, who was going to come on where. That just feels like it's all been thrown out the window. And I really, really like that. And this show, what I loved about it was bookended with an absolute banger at the start, an absolute banger at the end that then had the extra revelation of a big cop box match that I don't think anyone was expecting after it. And in between, you got everything else that comes from a Rev Pro show. You had like Jay Joshua debuting, you had all the drama of Sunshine Machine, you got the continuation and development of the Cutthroat Collective storyline. You had Mills and kind of using Callum Newman as a like proxy for Ethan Allen. There was all these things in there. And then obviously, Robbie X and Will Caven match, which was really unpredictable. And I certainly didn't have that finish down as what I was expecting. So you got that unpredictability. It felt to me like a really, really good use of time and a really unexpected ordering of matches, which worked perfectly. And it just felt fresh. Felt really, really fresh.
I would agree with all of that. Is like you said, I never realised until you said to me the first time, you talked about the coveted fourth spot, and you were always like, it's always a Luke Jacobs match, like that would be, or something akin to that. And as soon as you said it, I was watching this like, yeah. And then the wife would say to me, which match do you think's on first? And I'd go, I don't know, but I reckon Luke's on fourth. And then every time it would just be like, yeah. And like you said, everything's a bit different. And there was something on this card for everyone, wasn't there? You've got like the opener, which we'll get on with in a minute, but you had that, you had debuts, you had a women's match, like you said, that was further in a storyline. It's just what we needed. It didn't need to be a long match. It was just kind of what we needed there. But then we had a really great women's tag team match. We had matches with stakes to them as well, which I think near enough everything on this felt like it all had stakes riding on it. Which, if you build into a big show like the Copper Box and chucking in Summer Sizzler in the middle of all of that, you don't want matches that are just throwaway. Everything needs to have a purpose, and we've touched on it the last couple of weeks. And one of the things that I think RevPro are doing really well is everything feels like it has even more purpose, and it feels like everywhere's building to something. So we're building that women's division, we're building that cruiserweight division, the tag division, all of that is building along nicely. And on driving to work, I was listening to A Squared podcast because, like I said, Dave, you got me hooked on that. And it was talking about sort of around the 2014-15 time, where when I remember the Rev Pro cards I saw coming out, a lot of the time it was like a couple of big name, like one I went to, for instance, you were hooked in with John Morrison and Bret Hart being on the card. And then you had like Ricochet, who was really unknown, Will Ospreay, who was unknown on the card, like because they were trying to draw you in with those WWE names. Now it feels like we've almost gone the opposite way, and these big names, which once used to draw people in, there are what sets you apart for when you go to like your big shows. Unless you've got like a Josh Alexander, you can just pull out the bag and go, "Hey, surprise, Southampton! We had him the day before. Here you go. Thank you so much, Andy, for that perfect birthday treat." But like these were once the people that would sell your shows. Now these are the ones that you take your core that you're building up, you put your two biggest British stars that you've got as the headliner of the Copper Box, and then you're supplementing the matches below with these bigger stars. And it's just everything about RevPro feels like it's all coming around now. And it's never did I think I'd see a British promotion that would actually be able to really survive on having such a British core and be doing so well and doing all these big venues. And I think it's a testament to the scene and the people that are coming through and just the work that these guys are doing as a collective. The scene is the strongest now than I think I've ever seen it personally. When you're looking at the numbers of people coming through and the level of talent with them. Yes, you've always had your standouts before, but then respectfully, I've always seen some quite weak performers before, not meaning to sound bad or too critical of them, but now there's a standard that everyone seems to be hitting, and it's crazy. Like on a Rev Pro card, I don't think there's anyone I go, these guys put on a bad match. So bit of something for everyone, stakes with everything, and I even enjoyed a Sunshine Machine match as well because there was stakes and something that I could get into, and also because it meant that you and I just sat there in a chanting battle the whole time. But
Oh,
yeah.
mate, uh, I really like you, mate. You know, like you're my mate. I didn't like you for those 15 minutes. I sat there just like seething, being like, "Don't you cheer for young blood?"
Oh, I could hear the venom in your voice.
I would
Absolutely
just
heard
shout
it.
louder, mate. Honestly, that So for anyone that we record these on a Tuesday night, and then George does all the work behind the scenes to get them on platforms and stuff. And we put them out on a Friday so that everyone can have the weekend to kind of take it in. I also write my 10 takeaways for my website on a Tuesday night, and I post it on a Wednesday. So before we've come on air tonight, I've been writing my 10 takeaways, and I was writing about the Sunshine Machine match, and I realised that they managed to do something. They managed to make me feel something that I've never felt at a wrestling show before. I didn't like it, but it's absolute testament to how well invested they have got me in their story, because I felt anxious. I felt anxious in the same way that I feel anxious when West Ham are on TV and I'm watching them, and the reason why I don't go and watch West Ham live anymore. Like I stopped going to watch West Ham live for the benefit of my mental health, because it was like killing me, because I can't cope with the anxiety of live sport. I'm too invested in the football club that I grew up surrounded by. Like when we were kids, we'd literally go to the training ground every half term. Met all the players, used to go and watch the youth team, used to go and do everything. We used to go and watch the reserve team. Like we watched everything. We were like, they were my absolute heroes. And then you're like, oh my god, we're in a Europa League semi-final, we're in a Europa Conference final. I can't cope with this anxiety. And Sunshine Machine made me feel that on Sunday, because there are loads of people that are like, oh, like you're such a mark. Like, obviously their storyline's going to here, or it's going to there, it's going to GYV at the Copper Box, or it's going to go to the Tag League. They're going to get to the final and lose, or they're going to become the champions and they're never actually going to break up, and they're working us all. And it's like, they're all genuine possibilities, and any one of those could happen. But I also believe that they could just break up at any show, and that be that. Because TK especially, but TK and Mambo are like, they absolutely love wrestling, and they love the unpredictability of it. And so does Andy Coulden. Like, you look at this card and you think, like, loads of people do predictions for the shows, and they'll put out, you see them on Instagram and you see them on Twitter and stuff, and people will put who they think is going to win each one, and like, tag their friends in it and stuff. And lots of people in group chats, we're in group chats where people say what they think is going to happen in each card. I didn't see anyone predict the same thing for this card. Not one person matched my predictions for the outcomes, and my predictions weren't correct. There were matches where I thought, oh, I think he'll win for this reason, and they didn't win for a different reason. But everything always makes perfect sense, but there is a real unpredictability to it that I can only really liken to when you're watching the G1, where everything makes logical storyline sense, but it's always unpredictable. Anybody can beat anybody in the G1, and anybody can beat anybody in Rev Pro. Like, Gabe Kidd beat RKJ in 2022 when RKJ had just been announced as #1 contender to Will Ospreay, and then his very next match, Gabe Kidd beat him. Whereas, like, normally you'd be like, oh, if the #1 contender is no way going to lose a match because they're the #1 contender and they have to build strong. So Zozaya beat Luke Jacobs.
Exactly, that was going to be my point. Yeah,
like, they purposely go against the predictable, but do it so well that it's not a swerve for a swerve's sake. I'm so invested in the Sunshine Machine storyline, and I genuinely have anxiety that it's gonna have a big thing happen at Summer Sizzler, and I won't be there to see it. Like that. Of all the things that could happen at Summer Sizzler, and I've got some ideas as to people that we might see at that show. When you think about people that have become free agents recently, who have got Rev Pro history. But actually, the one that gets me is the idea that Sunshine Machine could lose at Summer Sizzler, and I don't get to see him at the Copper Box, and I don't get to see him win the Tag League. I don't get to see them become tag champions again. And also, I don't get that moment of my heart breaking at ringside. What an amazing job those boys have done with the fact that they haven't been a big part of Rev Pro for the last sort of, they've been in and out pretty much since they lost the tag belts. Same way that, like, Greedy Souls have been in and out since they lost the tag belts, because that kind of has to happen because there's 4 different divisions being built all at the same time. You can't have people that aren't not everybody can get on every card, So, like, it's amazing that they've done that, but it's also, like, amazing booking from Andy to have us so invested. Youngblood lost. First time they've lost outside of New Japan, which is, that's where some of that anxiety came from, and it's. I talked about it. I've used the phrase a lot recently. It's really brave booking, and I like brave booking. Brave and bold booking. That's exactly what I would describe Rev Pro as.
absolutely. And yeah, you know what? I challenge anyone who says that, like, oh, this isn't going to happen, because I think I've got a good grasp on how things will go sometimes. And then I'm standing there when, like, Zozaya beat Luke, and, like, I'm literally jump out of my seat. And again, I know that some of the people in the group chat are going to get a little bit. They're going to get a little bit salty that I'm not mentioning their name, Spike. But Tom, when who most of you will know Tom if you've ever watched a show at Southampton. You'll have heard Tom, usually chanting out a
Or
tune or
seen his
something.
umbrella.
Yeah, or seen his umbrella. But from where we were stood, he was like, again, head in hands, like, how has Luke lost this? And that's, like you said, brave, bold booking, because you go, well, that's never going to happen because this. And then you go, what the fuck? What does that mean going forward then? What does that mean for this? What does that mean for this? And you are very right when you said you thought Sunshine Machine could lose here. I was convinced they were going to lose this match. I was convinced. Absolutely. I've got a number of ways I thought this might play out, Sunshine Machine story. And I know that I've come and said I'm not the biggest Sunshine Machine fan as a team. Just don't do it for me as a team. I really want to see TK as a heel, and I want to see him singles. Like that's, I think there's so much potential in the guy, and I really want to see that. And I think he could fit into this roster quite nicely, and gives us something a bit different to what we have at the moment, and something we've not seen in Rev Pro for a long, long time. But I mean, we're going to cover Copperbox probably at some point over the next couple of weeks. Because I know we were going to originally we were looking at doing some predictions and whatnot, and I know we've got some bits coming up. But one of my predictions was going to be that these guys don't even make it to the Copperbox as a team, but they go against each other at the Copperbox because whatever's happened leading to the breakup has already happened. And like you said, breakup might not even come. Right? Let's be honest here. I think for me, that's almost Chekhov's gun a little bit. Like you introduce that and you go, oh, that sounds like. I know you don't feel this way because we've had this conversation, but for me, it's like I really want to see what story we can tell here, and I trust Andy as a storyteller and a booker to tell something really interesting. That's why it wouldn't feel like we're breaking up this big tag team for the sake of breaking them up, right? A lot of bookers would do that, and you'd be like, nah, not about seeing that. But I think Andy would do something different with it and do it really well. And part of me thought, does TK just turn on Mambo? Does Youngblood get a win and then something happens after them? Like that can happen, and we've seen results in London at these kinds of shows before where these aren't just. This isn't WWE. This isn't AEW where you've got your weeklies and then you got your big events where the big things happen. Rev Pro is showing that with their kind of scale of events that you might see something big happen in London. You might see something big happen in Southampton. And you've got these ones that every now and again something can pop you that you go, these shows I can't miss. Like you have to watch them because you might miss something. And yeah, I would have quite easily bought that Sunshine Machine were over because at one point to me it looked like Youngblood had them.
Yeah, they. I always think it never doesn't matter how much I've convinced myself I know what the result's going to be because it's the perfectly logical booking choice. There will always be in a moment in a match where I suspend my disbelief and completely
Yeah.
forget and absolutely buy a near fall. And yeah, that's great professional wrestling, isn't it? If it didn't do that, it would be really disappointing.
Yeah.
Sunshine Machine have got amazing timing at kickouts and last minute interruptions, and that they get me so much. Another phrase that I found myself wanting to write a couple of times in my takeaways earlier was legacy feud, and it's something that when we're talking about all the different types of shows around the country, there are so many legacy feuds in Rev Pro. Like you think about the history between like Oku and Luke Jacobs, Oku and Connor Mills. Now we're developing this legacy feud between JJ Gale and Luke Jacobs. We've got the legacy feud between Luke Jacobs and RKJ. We've got it between Oku and RKJ. Like this, they've got this amazing history, and that's like when you said about like trusting Andy as a storyteller. That's 100% what gets me so invested in it all, and why every show feels so essential because big things happen everywhere, and it's why when people say like, "Oh, I didn't get a ticket because I didn't think the card looked like the strongest," I always think to myself like, but one is still worth 20 quid. And two, like, it's not always necessarily the strongest card that gets the biggest moments. You know, it can be what happens at the end of a match, or someone who's not on the card who makes an appearance, or an impromptu promo. And, you know, you get these moments where you're just like, I'm always rewarded. I say it all the time. I've never left a Rev Pro show feeling like I didn't get value for money. And I've never left a show feeling like it wasn't worth my drive. Even if, like, on Sunday, it turned into a 6 or 7 hour round trip, I think, in the end. But so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's what we touching back on the points we made earlier. Like, there was a time, I'd say for me it was like 2021, 2022, where I was looking at cards going, yeah, that looked all right. And I'm kicking myself now because there's so much good stuff that happened in Southampton. Like, Southampton's half an hour down the road from me, whether I get the train or whether I drive, and it's like a 10-minute walk. And even then, I was like, yeah, it looks all right. But again, the way the cards are getting lately as well, and like we said, divisions are building, story seems to be building everywhere. Like, there always used to feel like these matches that were like, and it's perfectly fine, indie wrestling and all that. You can't always tie everything up in a lovely story, but it now feels like everything is there for a purpose. Everything's there for a reason. It's all to support this larger story, this larger narrative. Again, it's coming back to what we said earlier. We've got a great core of people, but it doesn't feel like that core is a small core. It's a big core now. And looking at those people who at one point would have been these ones who were building up, they're now the cornerstones of the show, like Connor Mills, Luke Jacobs, JJ Gale, Robbie X, Michael Oku. Like, they're probably for me like just the immediate core. And then when that's on the guy side of things, then when you start looking at the women's side of things, Danny Luna, Alex Windsor, Kanji coming into that as well. The up and coming women that we've got, like Lucia Lee, we've got Sapphire Reed, the women we're bringing in, like Lizzie Evo, all of those sorts. It's just all we need to do now, like when it comes around for the time as well, is give a really great tag league, and then you've got all of those bases absolutely covered. But one of the things you touched on there was legacy feuds, and you mentioned Luke and JJ, and we're going to do what we do best here, right? Rev Pro do pro wrestling at their best. Dave and I do bouncing around the card at our best and just talking about what we want in whatever order we want. What did you think of that main event? Because obviously for me, Luke and JJ at high stakes, that was my fourth favourite match of the year so far. How did this one hit you?
I loved it, mate. I really loved it, because for me, it delivered a killer match. Luke delivered a killer promo afterwards, and then had a killer angle coming out of it. And that's magic in a bottle, that is. Because, like, I'd say that the Zozaya versus Leon Slater was my favourite match on the card. But I think that was the best, like, overall match. But my highlight of the show was the main event, because for me, all of the main event, not just the match, it all sits in together. So the match was excellent. Of course, it was going to be. It was the third time these two have wrestled in the last 12 months. Third time they've wrestled singles ever, and every single time it's been great. But it was the whole part I loved. I think Luke has come. I don't know whether he's come on or whether it's just he does it now and he didn't used to do it. I don't ever remember, like, Luke being a bad talker or not being a good talker or anything like that. I just don't really remember him talking that much. But now, and even then now, he doesn't talk very often. But when he talks, he just hits these lines. Like, it still sticks with me when he won the Rumble and he called out Michael Oku. And it was just like the like absolute venom in his voice when he said that, like, really stuck with me. And when he addressed JJ, and I'm not going to read it for verbatim. I haven't got it in front of me, and I don't want to try and get it word for word, but like the gist of it was, you've had a go now. 3 times you've wrestled me. You ain't good enough. Get out of my business, and I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone, but we haven't got any reason to do this anymore because you ain't it and I am. And it was just like, it was so real. It was not like someone kind of reading off some little bullet points that they'd written backstage or anything like that. It was just absolutely perfect. And I was really happy with that. And then JJ comes back with just not accepting it, and then just coming with I'm going to do the one thing that you've never been able to do, and I'm going to wrestle and beat Tomohiro Ishii. And it was just like, no, I don't think anybody had that on their predicted card. I didn't. I had JJ down for a big singles match. And shout out to Ewan McKenzie. When I did the Swapcast podcast with him, he floated Speedball Mike Bailey versus JJ Gale. And at the minute he did, I was like, oh, that would be such a good match, and it would be great. Speedball's got so much history in Rev Pro, and JJ and him would have so much chemistry. JJ deserves a big match, but this is so much bigger than that. And that's not me saying Ishii's a bigger name than Speedball. It's because Speedball versus JJ Gale would be this great exhibition match for JJ. This isn't an exhibition match. This is a continuation of JJ and Jacobs' feud, which is bringing Ishii into it, because JJ is going to be fighting Ishii to prove himself to Jacobs, and we're going to come back to Luke and JJ in 6 months' time, and that is what I'm all about. That is long-term storytelling, which is what we all love about whatever wrestling company we watch, whether it's the Bloodline in WWE, whether it's like Hangman and Swerve in AEW, whether it is, like in New Japan, obviously you've got all the classics of Okada and Ospreay, and Okada and Omega, and Omega and Ospreay, and all these different ones. Like it's what we live for, because it's when you're watching a massive series of films and they've got callbacks to other things, and then older characters get brought in at different points, and you're just like, it's the universe, it's the wrestling universe coming back round again, and it's what we all love, and I'm so excited for that now. Do you know something that really, really got me as well? Like, I was chatting to a few people in the queue before, and we were talking about the 12th anniversary, and they're like, would just want to see some more like match announcements now. It feels like it's coming around quite quickly. And there were other people being like, yeah, but we've still got a few shows to go. Like, there's still got quite a lot to build. And then I kind of sat down and thought about the fact that we all know, like, we're not far away from having a complete card already actually confirmed, just without the match graphics, right? We've got 5 matches confirmed, like with match graphics.
Yep.
And then we've got the Mills and Ethan Allen, which we know is happening. We're just waiting for the announcement.
Yeah.
And we've got the open challenge that the Cutthroat Collective put out, the 5-on-5. And we know that Andy said there's going to be 10 matches with a pre-show match. Yeah. So 11 in total. Well, that only leaves 4 gaps. And you've got GYV that we know are going to defend the tag titles, because Andy said every championship will be defended.
Absolutely.
So we've got GYV, assuming they're still champions, unless something happens at Summer Sizzler. We've got GYV defending the belts. Robbie X is going to be on that card. There's no way he's not going to be on that card. So you're going to get a big Robbie X singles match now that he's not, now that Caven beat him for the spot in the scramble with Neon. You have, what's that leave? That leaves 2 spaces.
Yep, and we think that one of those is going to be RKJ.
RKJ, which I'm still very much assuming is RKJ and Gabe Kidd.
Yeah, makes sense.
Although that it's one of those ones. It's like JJ and Zack Sabre Jr. last year. You know it's coming, but scheduling means you just don't know when it's coming.
Yeah.
So I always thought we were going to get, from the Rumble, I thought we'd get JJ and Zach at before the Copper Box. And then it didn't happen before the copper box, and it ended up happening at Uprising. So I'm assuming we're going to get Gabe and RKJ. Maybe if that isn't at the copper box, maybe that is this year's Uprising, or somewhere in between. Like the J Cup always has a couple of absolute bangers in there outside of the competition. And then you look at that basically means so if RKJ is getting a match, and it doesn't involve Robbie X, and he's getting a match, and that doesn't involve GYV, and they're getting a match, that leaves one spot left. And then you've got, okay, who's getting that one spot? Is it Zozaya? Is it something involving like David Francisco, Josh James, Charles Samuels, Golden Boy Santos, like that thing that's, that story that's happening? Does it involve Cameron Kine? I personally think Cameron's going to end up in the scramble match.
Same.
I'm assuming we'll get Cameron in the scramble. We'll get Leon in the scramble. I think we're going to get a big name at Summer Sizzler earn their spot in the scramble, and then I think there'll be one space because Cameron could qualify in Coventry, Leon could qualify in Southampton, and the big name could qualify at Summer Sizzler. That's one per show, and then there's a sixth spot, but there's not a fourth show between now and then. So that one could just be the empty one. And then you've got that Orange Cassidy moment from High Stakes of who's it going to be. And that's where we could pull out a big name like a Mystico maybe or someone like that.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
It wasn't me that fought Mystico. I didn't get my Nando's with you on Sunday, as you know, but I ended up going to Nando's with a few of the guys and girls that were at the 229. We all went and got Nando's after the show, and it was one of the girls that floated Mystico. I think it might have been Charlie, Wrestle Purists Charlie. It was either her, Catherine, or Natasha, Wrestling Rhapsody Natasha, that floated Mystico. And it was one of those ones where you're like, yeah, that just makes a lot of sense, and it would be a great moment. But yeah, I mean, like, there's not as much to come for the copper box as people probably think there is. But at the moment now, you start looking at the card and you're like, cool, we're getting Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hechicero. We're getting Danny Luna versus Stephanie Vacour.
Yeah.
We're getting Jay Gale versus Tomohiro Ishii. Like, there are some big names and big matches now. And obviously, we're getting Oku versus Luke Jacobs, which I know some people will look at that and be apprehensive of. It's not the big names of Ospreay and Shingo, but I don't think that. I think it's absolutely clear that Andy has he's putting all of his chips on. We showed you what we can do last year. Now come and see what we do on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And he's getting his fans that way. He talks about it all the time in the A Squared podcast, doesn't he? Of getting people to come in for those names like you talked about earlier, the Bret Hart, the John Morrisons, and staying for who's there. And if anyone who listens to this has not watched Luke Jacobs versus Michael Oku wrestle before, like, go and watch the half an hour match that they had in the 229 last year. It was insane. Go and watch when Luke beat Michael in Manchester and listen to the noise that Manchester made for how invested they were in their boy winning the championship. And I'll tell you, there's something about something that really, it didn't surprise me, but it stayed with me ever since. When Oku and Jacobs wrestled at the 229, the crowd was so split between the two of them. If anything, it was slightly more Jacobs than it was Oku. And I feel like it's going to be some real heat in the crowd for the copper box, because there are some absolute diehard Oku fans and there are some absolute diehard Jacobs fans, and that is really going to split people. And they're going to wear they're going to wear their colours and fly their flags and cheer for their boy exactly like that. Like, I know you're going to be there cheering Luke Jacobs 100%. I don't know who I'm going to cheer for because I bloody love both of them.
Yeah.
And I really, there's a big part of me that really wants Luke Jacobs to win. And there's also a really big part of me that wants to see what happens if Oku retains. And that is, that is perfect booking, isn't it?
Well, Dave, you know what? I was going to save this till a little bit later, but there's something I want to let the people know about here. So, when we were sitting in the 229 at the weekend, right, and the question that we didn't get around to doing last week, we said we are going to do this week, actually from Tea and Tights podcast, is along the same sort of lines here. One of the things that I've been positing today for a while would be, what if Michael doesn't lose the title? What if? Um, so we've decided we're going to try our hand at something a little bit different here on CromulentWrestling, and we are going to do what if Michael Oku wins at the Copper Box. So what that is going to entail is Dave is going to go away, I'm going to go away, and we're going to just write out what we think is going to happen, and we're going to present it almost in a fantasy booking style. But what would we do? How do we think the story could play out? Because I'm the same as you. I think there are so many interesting possibilities here to be told of this, and I feel like Michael Oku has had the title way longer than he has, and not in a bad way either. It just feels like he's been champion for so long, and I think he's been champion since me properly embedded myself back into Rev Pro. Like when I say full time, God, that sounds so lame, doesn't it? But that's where I feel like I've just gone all in, and he was winning the title at that point. So for me, he feels like my guy as a champion, and I love Oku, like absolutely love it. I think he's incredible, both the guy and the performer, like, and what he does, like, just so good for the show. And part of me is like, do I want to see a Rev Pro without Michael Oku as champion? Like, do I want to see that? Like, there is so much more in the tank. So we've decided we're going to go away and write this out. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. My flag is going to be nailed onto the mast of Luke Jacobs, and I don't know what is Luke. He's just captured me this last year and a half. That even before the Copper Box match, which is one of the matches I was looking forward to, and I said to my missus beforehand, I went, "That is going to be the sleeper hit of the night. Like that is going to do something special." It even beat my expectations of what they could do. Like just lightning in a bottle. I'm glad I was there for that one because it was just something. Um, but yeah, he just really gripped me, and that's like I've I would go anywhere that Rev Pro puts a show on that I think Luke is going to win the title, right? Um,
Oh, yeah.
the 229 show that you mentioned, I really last minute made the decision not to come. I was like, they got me, and as Andy will always say, one fan at a time, because that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get people in. I am someone that goes, it doesn't make sense in theory to switch the title, but then I was like, but why would they put this match already? Why would they do this? Like, it just felt really abrupt. I was like, a change is coming. A change is coming. They're going to switch the title, and of course, it didn't happen. But that's what they do. They get you, don't they? And Andy is really, really great at doing that. And look, I know that Luke's got a big match coming up in progress later on this month, right? It's for a main title, and I want to see Luke win the big one. But for me, that is the Rev Pro one. That is, and that's not trying to be tribalistic, but it's the style of wrestling that I like, the promotion I like that gives that style. I'm not going to travel to London for that, but if you told me this title match was going to be in Manchester, I'd be up there. And I think I even said that to you. Like I was convinced when he said there's one place for this. I went, they're going to announce Manchester, aren't they? And I thought, fine, here comes another 6 hour drive for me to Manchester and 150 quid hotel. No way on earth I was going to miss it if that happens. So um, I think that whole match as well, like you said, oh, it was just incredible. Something I heard recently, when I say recent, it's probably the last couple of months, and someone summed it up really nicely for me. They said, if you want to have a really great wrestling card, you need three things to make it really great. You need a great match, a great promo, and a great angle. We got all of that in one package. And here's the things that, right, the match was fantastic. I'm really interested. I can't kind of give it, like, in my mind of where do I think it sits from matches I've seen this year, right? It's far too fresh, and I was there. So I'm going to need to watch it back and actually let it settle, marinate, all that shit. Um, and it might reach the heights the other one did, but it was still a really, really great match. But here's the things that I'll take with it. One, the promo. I think, he said something like, sit yourself down, or something like that. And he was like calling him son and stuff like that. It was just like,
Yeah,
this
he's
has come
so
from
condescending. He does it so well. It's like
23-year-old lad.
Yeah. But also like if Luke Jacobs said that to me and I'm like 14 years older than him, I'd do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he is a man. There is nothing boyish about Luke Jacobs. Like, he is a big, strong, proper, grown-up man, like ready to take the world by storm. One thing I will say, you said about not knowing whether it's you need to watch it back to know if it's a better one or the high stakes or where it ranks with that. I think that the growth in JJ Gale as a performer between now and high stakes makes that a real possibility that it might have outdone that match.
Yeah.
And also the growth in JJ Gale from high stakes to like this time last year, like he is one of those people where you just think like this time. It's funny, like I interviewed him this time last year, and literally tonight I've just arranged like a follow-up interview with him. So we're going to do an interview based around his match with Ishii and get some content out there for everybody to get his thoughts on it. And I just think like it made me think about when we sat down and we chatted this time last year about the Fujita match and the conversation that we're going to have this year. He's a different man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's a completely different man. And when, like this time last year, when he was talking about being like the heart and soul of Revolution Pro Wrestling, and I remember it stuck in my head. He was like, "It's not a moniker. Like I genuinely like that is what I believe I am." And it was like, yeah, like I could see why he believed that. And it's like, yeah, because when I was thinking about like those brilliant reactions he gets when he's down in Southampton and Portsmouth and how well they treat him as one of their own. And I was like, yeah, you are like the heart and soul of Rev Pro in that sense. But actually now it's like, no, like you legit are. Like you are a future British heavyweight champion. And it's, it's 3-0 Luke Jacobs right now. But there's not going to be 3 matches between Luke Jacobs and JJ Gale. There's going to be a lot of matches between Luke Jacobs and JJ Gale. And he's just like, again, like we talk about like we give all the praise to companies and like I think we were talking about the other day, like Danny Garcia in AEW and like how far Danny Garcia's come in AEW and how I think of him as like when they did all their stuff around the 4 pillars that I didn't really like. But I think of like Danny Garcia as being like up there with those guys now. And like Tony Khan gets quite a lot of praise for like building these stars. And New Japan used to. They're it's something that obviously they've got a big project now. They've lost a lot of big stars and they're having to rebuild. And I'm sure they will because they have done so much in the past. Just like a great football club, they will always have a great team, even if there's a little bit of a transition between them. I don't think Andy gets enough credit for building up stars. Like Connor Mills is a legit headline act. He wasn't a year ago. No. JJ Gale is a legit headline act. He wasn't a year ago. Luke Jacobs is, this time last year, was a legit headline act. So was Michael Oku. But now they're legit headline acts in arenas. Not just like in the 229, not just like in York Hall, but Arena Mexico. Like,
yep.
Like over in like Sumo Hall in Japan, like you can absolutely see Luke Jacobs out there doing the G1. 100% you can see that. Like, and it's even like I feel like with Zozaya, he must get a huge amount of credit for the fact that he has come over and he has got himself over. Like, he did that. I sat there in Stevenage when he made his British debut for Rev Pro, and the reason we did the Ole, Ole, Ole chant was because no one was very confident at how to say his name. Like, that's where that came from. Like, it's not like it was a discussed thing and all the fans, like, there's not like one massive WhatsApp chat for like 700 Rev Pro fans. But you could tell that's where it came from because not many people were like too familiar with him. But by the end of the night, everyone was absolutely cheering for him because he'd got himself over. But at the same time, Andy has booked him to help him get over. You know, he's lost one match in singles so far, and it was against RKJ, who is booked as like, you know, RKJ doesn't lose. Like RKJ very, very rarely loses, and he is like a standard. Hence the Jay Joshua match this month, you know, the Mike DeVecchio match, the Golden Boy Santos match, the Vaughn Vertigo match. Like he is the let's see how good these guys are. Put him in the ring with RKJ, and that's
he's the
kind
X-Pac, isn't he? That
yeah,
kind of gatekeeper.
I think it does two things. One, it legit shows Andy how good they are from a like non-kayfabe thing, and two, it's telling the kayfabe story that RKJ is this like gold standard, so that either I think RKJ will go on to challenge Jacobs or Oku after the Copper Box. Whoever wins it, I think RKJ is the next man to challenge. Same. And it feeds in really nicely to the Gabe Kidd match because Gabe Kidd's now this big deal all around the world. And RKJ can stand toe to toe to him and be like, you left, I didn't. I'm the standard.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so much to it there. Like, I know we're kind of like dancing all over the place, but actually I'm really quite enjoying myself. I quite enjoy this, just getting it all out and just shooting the shit.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I will say, because we just mentioned him, I thought Jay Joshua did an incredible job. And it was actually, the more I thought about it, the more I realised he was given a really hard hand because they were put on second after Zozaya and Leon Slater. I don't think we need to say too much. Well, I don't need to say too much about that match. You might need to say more about the match because all I'll say is go and watch it.
That was literally what I was going to say. I was just going to say, RevProOnDemand.com, go and watch that match. Like, we knew that was going to be good. Like, as soon as I got announced, I was like, wow, okay, that sealed me being there. Like, that's all I needed. Like, you could just say to me, hey, George, this is the match that we're doing. Rest of the card. You could put Dave in there in a fucking tutu doing a 12 for the rest of the night. Quite enjoyable, I imagine. But if that was all that you had alongside this match, yeah, cool, I'm buying a ticket. And yeah, just go and watch it. That is easily going to be heavily featured in a top 10 end of year.
Yeah.
As everything Zozaya seems to be does. Like, I'm not going to labour the point too much because, again, just go and watch it if you haven't watched it already. Like, that is all I can say. Words do not do it justice, but this man is something special. I've not seen someone come into a company, and I've told him this, like, literally to his face. I said, I've not seen someone come into a company that has just seemed to get it and give it an opportunity and taken it. The fact that I already see him as the third/fourth alongside at least Luke and Oku with Zozaya, and then maybe RKJ just ahead of him, but that's kind of where I see him. Like, again, I don't want to use that 4 pillars analogy that we just mentioned earlier because I know it's an overdone thing, but back in the day, like, I kind of look at like old school WWF in the 2000s. After putting this t-shirt on, I realised this is the same year Luke Jacobs was born. When I say old school, like, but
we're old.
We are old, man. But like, you would have, like, you had your top 3 guys. You had The Rock, Triple H, Stone Cold. So you had your 3 built around. Then you had that just under supporting characters. And I feel like Luke and Michael are up there. And then you've got kind of RKJ and Zozaya really nipping at their heels in terms of that. So yeah, the guy did tremendous, as we know that he would do. So he's doing great. But you are absolutely right, Dave. Like, when that match finished, I think either I turned to you or you turned to me. One of us said basically, "Oh, follow that!" Like,
I think there was
unenviable.
A chant.
Yeah,
I'm sure I remember there being like one of those chants where you can hear a few people doing it, but it hasn't really like caught on. But it was more like one where it was like people just laughed with it because it wasn't like a serious chant. They weren't trying to get everyone to do it, but there was like a little bit of a follow that.
Yeah.
And you think then, like, that's a really hard gig for someone where and unfortunately, there were quite a few people in the crowd that knew Jay Joshua. He's not like some rookie. Like he's a champion in other promotions. He's a big deal. But making your Rev Pro debut is a big deal. It's a big deal to him because he's literally put out like Instagram reels labeling it like Rev Pro debut. Like Rev Pro is a destination to these guys. Like I've literally had them say that to me when I've sent them over my photos at the end of a show, or I've tagged them in the 10 takeaways and stuff. Like it's something that means a lot and not just to like the UK talent. I remember when Royce Isaacs debuted, I remember chatting to him afterwards, and we were just chatting about like New Japan Strong and NWA Power when I used to watch him on there, and he was like, I really, really enjoyed, like, I want to come back. I want to come and do like a proper tour. I want to do like 6 dates. I want to work all the different towns. And it was like, shit, dude, like you literally wrestled like 12 minutes and you are sold on Rev Pro. Like, one day with the crew, and it's a destination for people. So loads of pressure on Jay Joshua. And I think they did it beautifully.
Yeah, same.
They absolutely brought the crowd down and then built them back up again. And that is perfect kind of like psychology to wrestling, isn't it? Like you can't just go out and have like cocaine banger after cocaine banger and just have, because literally people will burn out and come down. Like they worked people down, built them back up, completely different type of match. And I've always said this, I think that the hardest people to book must be the big guys. Like you could have like a Walter. When NXT UK had Walter, and he was literally the final boss.
Mm-hmm.
But a problem with booking a final boss is a bit of the unpredictability goes away because they have to win all the time to be the final boss. Rev Pro doesn't do that. Even Oku has lost matches whilst he's been champion. There is no final boss of Rev Pro, except maybe when Ospreay was like the final boss. But even then, Ospreay lost to Oku, Ospreay lost to RKJ.
Yeah.
Like, it was, no one's gone on like a winning streak of years and years and years. So then you get like these other big guys that come in, and like take like Golden Boy Santos he's not had the, like his wins and losses record isn't tremendously great. And he's a big guy, and that's quite hard to book because you've got the big bad heel bad guy, but they're also losing. Now for him it's working because he's got David Francisco and their shit houses, and there's all this like other stuff and story going on round. But if it was, we're going to bring in Golden Boy Santos, imagine they'd brought him in just as a singles run, we're booking him 6 dates and he's going to lose all 6 of them, his aura would go. Shigehiro Irie, it works really well for. Shiggy never wins in Rev Pro. Like the dude's win-loss record is shocking, but he's a face.
Yeah.
And he's super lovable. Like he is so
absolutely.
Like this is one of the weirdest things I'll ever say because he is like a fully grown man. And
I hope you're going to say what I'm going to say.
I don't know how old he is. I think he's a couple of years younger than me, but the dude is cute. He is such a cute man. Like he's so lovable in that sense. Jay Joshua has this like vulnerability to him.
Yeah.
Really likable, really over. I love everything. I love like the say less. I love the Notorious B.I.G. reference. Like, it's just everything about it is he's got this cool look, cool demeanor to him.
Yeah.
But he can lose wrestling matches and not lose any of his aura because he's a babyface who was presented to us as a babyface, and he has the facial expressions that drew me in completely. And like obviously like I'm a massive positive guy when it comes to Rev Pro, not just because like I write about it and it will do me good to write nice things about people, because then they'll give me a bit more kind of like JJ Gale will do an interview with me because I write nice things about him. If I said he was rubbish, he probably wouldn't do an interview with me. That's not why I do it. I do it because I genuinely believe it.
What a mark.
But there are some guys who have been booked in Rev Pro for one-off appearances where I've watched their match and thought, yeah, I'm really glad they came. I'm glad I got to see that person. That was a really good match.
Mhm.
And then I've never seen them again. They've never been booked again. Maybe they will do down the line. But I'm not kind of desperately pining to see them again. It would be nice
Yeah,
if we do, but it's not the end of the world if we don't. I want to see Jay Joshua again.
yeah. So do I.
Like, I immediately was kind of went away thinking, I reckon Jay Joshua and Joshua James would be a well-called tag team. Like, I know that seems like really lazy because they've got similar names, but actually, two big blokes who can lose, two big blokes who have got the crowd support that can lose. They could go in the tag league and go on a losing streak and not get any wins out of it, and that still be a cool story. Like, I remember, like, I love Zach Knight. I'm a big Zach Knight guy. When he was on his losing streak and he just could not buy a win, and you could see him week on week getting more frustrated with it. I was into that, like really, really into that, because he's a big, strong guy that can lose. You just have to book these guys against people that are also big, strong guys that can beat them, or clever guys. You know, like Zach lost to Oku because Oku's a clever wrestler. Zach lost to like Connor Mills because Connor Mills is a dangerous wrestler. Like, as long as you're not having someone on a losing streak and they're losing to someone that you don't respect, that you don't think of as being capable of beating anybody. But Rev Pro don't have these people. They
Yeah,
don't have jobbers. Everybody is booked strongly, like, to an extent. Like, Cameron Kai doesn't win very often. I think, I'm not sure. I think he's only won twice this year. I think Robbie X in Sheffield and Richard Holiday in Southampton, I think, are his only
yeah,
two wins this year. But he always looks like he can beat people because of the fact that their matches are generally 50-50, 55-45, 60-40, those kind of splits. And then you get the odd match like Mercedes Blaze versus Ronnie Knox that was much more one-sided,
yeah.
which I think has been a really good addition to the format recently. But because they don't just, have people come in and get beaten in 5-6 minutes, there is that element of someone like a Jay Joshua could wrestle 10 times and lose 10 times, but still look really good losing.
Yeah.
And because he's got that sympathy with the crowd, immediately I feel like that would work. I'd love to see him back. I'd also love to talk about the Cutthroat Collective, if that's something we will transition to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you know what? I love this match. One of the things that I think I've said a lot to you, and I know that you don't need sold on this because you're captain of the fan club, most likely. But I've become such a Kanji guy this year. Um,
Yeah,
she is just, and you know what? I've really noticed something. I can't remember if we said it on here or whether you said it to me privately when we were chatting, but we talked about like Kanji and like the noise she makes in matches to almost like get people in, and like her use of in-ring noise doesn't sound like egregious, because you get some people who it just sounds a bit silly because they don't do it very often, and like you'll hear them go or something like that, and you're just like, all right, it sounds like it's just coughing up the hay fever or something. But Kanji just has these little bits that she does, and it draws you in. And I think teaming her with Lucia Lee, right, is a just a great move. Lucia Lee is someone that, if you can see that she's growing in the ring, right? Because that's why she is where she is. She's a contender. She's new to the business. She's been put in with all of these great talents because she is learning, developing, growing, and she's finding her place really, really quickly. It is the thing that you talked about with Jay Joshua is the facials, right? When
yeah,
I watch Lucia Lee, right, she's putting all the moves together. I'm watching the face, and there are so many times you caught some of them perfectly, but there are so many times I'm like, wish I just caught this facial reaction. I wish I'd caught this one. The same in Stevenage. She just sells a beating and knows that line between goofy overselling and legit selling. She knows where that line is perfectly, and just makes you go, oh, like you just feel for her, which then makes the others just look so dangerous. I mean, I don't know, other than maybe Alex Windsor, two women that seem as dangerous in Rev Pro as Lizzie Evo and Sapphire Reed. both for
mate,
different
so
reasons. They are so good together, those two. Like, you talk about tag
yeah.
leagues, right? Let's do something different. Let's throw format out the window. Let's put Lizzie and Sapphire in the tag league. I don't care. Let's just stick them in there. But seriousness to it as well, that they are so good together and they look so dangerous. I thought this match was excellent. It's exactly what it needed to be. We had our theory and kind of thing of saying about how it seemed to be that when the collective were together, that's when they were at the strongest. When they're not, that's when they need the help. And I think they kind of, I think the results were right. Mercedes Blaze getting that win over Ronnie Knox shows that there are levels to this as well. That hey, they can still be dangerous by themselves. I think that was a really good way of doing it. But I thought, oh no, well, we've had them pick up the win there, so surely Kanji and Lucia Lee, they're going to pick up the win because Stevenage as well, kind of what happened there. Surely that no, they didn't pick it up. And I thought that was a really nice, almost like a switch up to the format where you go, right, this is where they get the win back, and then they didn't. And
Yeah.
it was like, okay, cool. So yeah, love this match. I thought this went a really long way. Just the one thing for me, when everyone is putting CTC for everything, only thing that I find hard to take serious about that is that was the name of a school where I grew up. So when I see CTC, it takes me back to being 15 years old and going to school. That's just a really random thing for me.
Is there a clothing company called CTC? It's only when like I've written CTC, but I haven't really said it. And I'm now picturing a logo where it's a C, a T in the middle, and a C going the other way.
Well, Dave, there's one thing I can say to that. Anyone who's watching or listening to this, comment below. Add a comment onto the podcast. Let us know.
This is where
Do you know the
we find
CTC?
out it's something really embarrassing. It's like, yeah, Dave, that's not a clothing brand. That's like a porn website, and you've just stumbled across it and just shared the fact that you've seen it.
Dave's
You're
pretending he doesn't know. Anyway,
like,
back to
I'm
the
a pillar of
ladies.
society, Cromulent George. I am a teacher. Thank you very much. The something that I absolutely love, it was the dynamic between them. You got two like super experienced wrestlers in the ring in Lizzie and Kanji, and two like youngsters in Sapphire and Lucia, and it was not obvious in any way that there was like an experience difference. Like Sapphire is so good, like to be her age and as good as she is quite frightening. Lucia has progressed so much. I think I've seen all of her Rev Pro matches live, bar her very first one, I think. And I can literally see it time after time. I can see her growing into that. But again, I also like the fact that that's not just reality, that's kayfabe as well. She is playing the role of the junior kind of taken under the wing by Kanji. Something that I love is the fact that for the first time in as long as I've been watching Rev Pro, we get the same women booked week after week after week, and they're not just because they're the champion. And one thing that works amazingly with that is how many times now has Kanji or Lucia Lee been in the same ring as the Cutthroat Collective guys? No, obviously these guys, they all work like Pro Wrestling Eve together. They all work all the different indies around the country. Like they all know each other. These guys would have all wrestled loads of times, but now they've also wrestled each other a fair few times in a Rev Pro ring, and we're getting some continuity, and we're getting, you know, I'm already hyped for the fact that we're getting Debbie Keitel versus Kanji in commentary, and immediately you're thinking, there's no way that none of the other women are going to be there. Like, there's proper story beyond just the kind of people come in, do a couple of shows and go away again.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it so much. Like also I can't believe I had to even double check this, but it was only the last 229 show that these guys even debuted.
Yeah.
It feels like this story has been like, I know there were 5 shows last month, and that's quite, they don't normally have 5 shows in a month. So actually, although it was only like 4 weeks that they've been there. It's across 5 shows, but it feels like it is such a big part of the whole show already. I'm loving the 2 women's matches, or even 3 that we had in St. Neots. I spoke about it last week. I love what it does to the rest of the card, where the fact that because of that, like, we had no David Francisco and Golden Boy Santos storyline this week, and I think that's a good thing, because otherwise the storylines either get burnt out too quickly, or like, for those guys, and it's not just like me that goes to every show. There are people that watch Rev Pro on demand every week.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be watching the exact same wrestlers every week. You want there to be like some variety to it, and we're getting that really, really well. But the stories are not being forgotten about. So yes, we didn't get Francisco and Golden Boy Santos this week. I assume that means we'll get them in Coventry. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's perfect. I liked Alex Windsor's promo. I thought she did a really good job of. She didn't need to do it, but it was a little bit like when Jericho introduced the Inner Circle and bigged up Hager and bigged up Santana and Ortiz and Guevara. She like did that. It's not like she needed to do that because we don't know who these women are, but it was nice just to see where they fit in. I really liked the fact that like Sapphire Reed is the little like gobshite youngster of the group, and you're reminded of how badly Alex Windsor treated Maya Matthews. And like Sapphire and Maya Matthews had loads of history. And it's not like I'm expecting Maya Matthews to come out of retirement and come back and get in the fold. But it's just nice the fact that you've got this extra little part of the story. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but even if I am, there's continuity in the character. There's continuity in how Alex Windsor treats younger wrestlers, because it's, she's so locked into what she's doing. Thought Ronnie Knox did her role brilliantly. Like, that was perfect. Mercedes Blaze is a badass. Like, I love that woman. She's so good. Lizzie Evo, like. So Mark Roffey, Rev Pro, well, Brit Rest, traveling fan, like real nice guy. Like, he'd said to me loads before about some women he wanted to see come into Rev Pro, and he always talked about Lizzie. And I was like, yeah, I'm not very familiar with her. As like, I literally follow Rev Pro around the country. I don't go see anybody else. I said, but if you're recommending her, I'm sure if she comes into Rev Pro, I'll really enjoy her. And then literally, like, she's like my new favorite wrestler, like, in the women's division. Like, she is so. She's everything. Like, she is vile in the best possible way. Like, but she's also hilarious when she pulls out, and it's like, obviously the woman is Scouse, and obviously she can't help having a Scouse accent. There's nothing wrong with a Scouse accent, don't get me wrong, but she must know that when she says certain things in her Scouse accent, that it just sounds extra hilarious. Like, when she's bantering off Oscar Harding, and I'm not going to do the accent because I'll just upset people and embarrass myself. But it's just, 1 minute you're laughing at her, the next minute you're holding like your mouth because she's just kicked Kanji's face off, and you're like, she is such a top quality wrestler. Like, really enjoying that. We talked last week about how much we both enjoyed Nina Samuels. Like, she's fitted in, and she had something different to it. It's a great dynamic. I also really like the fact that I'm hoping that them turning on Nightshade means that Nightshade gets to continue to be part of it, but on the other side, because there's like a really good like baby face in her as well. And I'm really excited for this 5-on-5 match. There were loads of names bouncing around that people were sharing, where you're like, ooh, that would be really cool. Like, I thought of Hyan. Will Hyan come back for it? She's got a lot of history in Rev Pro. Somebody was, I think it might have been yourself, was it, that mentioned Giselle Shaw? Somebody mentioned Zoe Lucas. Obviously, with everything that's happened in her life recently, I don't know whether that's possible, or but it would be lovely as a way of kind of paying some tribute to James Castle to have her on the show. And then you think about the fact that, Jodie Frett from TNA, obviously her and Danny are a tag team, and it was Danny that said, I've got some friends. Like, there's loads that could happen there, and that's like exciting. Sometimes like speculating on who it's going to be is as much fun as finding out when you get, like, Rev Pro always deliver, right? I remember when I remember when we were standing outside Crystal Palace, and everyone was speculating on who they thought the person was going to be that joining the scramble match, and there were people there being like, "Did you see Orange Cassidy and Swerve are in London because they were doing something with AEW?" And I'm literally kind of standing there being like, "Guys, like let's lower our expectations a little bit, right? Like it's like probably not gonna be like that big." And then Shigehiro Ari's music comes on, and I'm sort of like, oh, I hope people aren't disappointed because I think that's really cool that it's him. And then Orange Cassidy comes out, and you're like, oh man, like they've absolutely worked the tits off of us. Um,
Absolutely.
I mean, I knew it was going to be Orange Cassidy already, simply because I accidentally found myself in the RevPro locker room because I misjudged where the bottom floor of the lift took you when I was taking our friend Jack down, who needed disabled access. And we clicked the lift down, and the doors opened. There was Orange Cassidy standing there in full gimmick with his hands in his pockets. And I've never pressed an elevator button quicker to be like, shit, we're gonna get so told off. Quick button, press the button, press the button, press the button, and off we went straight back up. Fortunately, we didn't have to keep that secret very long because his music hit about 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they deliver. That's the
Yeah,
point I'm getting at. They deliver, and because
absolutely.
they deliver, it can be fun to speculate on who it's going to be.
Yeah, you know what? And that was it. Like, because I was one of those people that kept saying about Orange Cassidy, and even then you were, and I was going, no, but these are the reasons why I think it makes not the whole swerve, because then everyone was like, oh, well, Swerve's coming next. I was like, no, he's not. Like, just lower your expectations, guys. Like, seriously, lower your expectations in that sense. But I was like, no, this one does make sense to me. And then, as you said, they deliver. Like, that wasn't even advertised, and they deliver, and that's what when we're talking about RevPro, we can say, yeah, they deliver. So, like you said, you can speculate. And then they increase these stories and go, we're going to introduce more women. We're going to do this. We're going to give them proper airtime. Like the fact, and I mean this in all due respect, the fact that at the minute, like I'm going, yeah, it's cool that I'm not seeing Danny Luna, right? Danny Luna is probably my favorite, like the one that I get into the most from a character who draws me in because, again, she's just got that way of drawing you into it. And I love her. I love Alex Windsor. But when they were having that title match, I was Danny Luna through and through. In the same way, I'm going to be Luke Jacobs through and through. All they've had to do for that match is go, Danny, Steph for care, off you go, right? We don't need, and that's also now given a lot of space for these women to grow and tell their story. So they're not kind of competing with, when I say competing, I don't mean competing one woman's story against one woman's story. I just mean competing for airtime on a stacked show with stacked stories. Like Lizzie Evo, I said to you before, like really worked me. Like absolutely worked. Like she's a worker, but she worked me into legitimately hating her. Like because I thought she'd really got injured, and that's a special trait that someone can do. The comedy element, and when I say comedy, she's not going out there being all out and out comedy. She is just making you laugh, and then, like you said, doing some vile. Sapphire, she is growing massively, already becoming one of my favourites, and even the growth since High Stakes, amazing. You can see and hear the strikes that she does. Um, Interesting you mentioned Nina Samuels as well, because obviously she wasn't there. She's got things she's doing. But listening to the A Squared podcast, you're going to hear that a lot lately. Um, Recorded 5 years ago, and Andy is there saying Nina Samuels is perhaps the most underrated women's wrestler in the UK, and now has found the perfect spot to bring her into and letting her thrive there. So yeah, it's so cool to speculate because I won't even lie. Part of me is going, are they going to kick anyone else out beforehand though? And now I don't think they will because to me there's
I
only two.
hope not.
Yeah, there's only two women that I think you call for me. You call like three that I don't think would get kicked out would be Alex, Lizzie, or Sapphire. Um, I think if they tried with Mercedes or Nina, I could. If they're gonna do it, I could see it being one of those two. Because again, they're very strong performers,
Mm,
and I think you're going to need some strong characters over on the other side of things as well, because you've got some big characters there. But I really don't want it to happen. I want this core group now to stay a core group. You've had the
yeah,
shock of someone being kicked out. They look great as a unit together. They are. I don't know. I don't know if I've heard this somewhere before, but to me, they're almost like the Spice Girls, right? Now, bear with me here. That they all look completely different, right? They're all totally different, right? None of them are the same in the way that they are, but they all work as a unit. They all complement each other. They move well as a unit. They look good as a unit. There is something about them where these group of women should not work well together in based on like uniformity almost more than anything. Like the same way that you get like a bunch of
Also, like
dudes sometimes.
there's each of them is such an accomplished wrestler that you wouldn't like if you were going to put a
Hmm.
group together, you were going to put a stable together, you wouldn't put five of the top guys in a stable together because you
Yeah.
want like layers. But actually, that's exactly what they've done. They've put five of the best women in women's British wrestling together,
Mhm.
and it's working perfectly because also like I feel like Alex kind of gave the impression that she's like the leader of the group now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just because she had the microphone. Maybe it won't be like that. But one thing I liked about it before was there was no leader, and I trust that like I could like Mercedes Blaze and Lizzie Evo and Nina Samuels and like Sapphire Reed. They're not going to let somebody else hoggle the limelight. Like both in character, like in kayfabe, but also just they're such encapsulating performers that you're not just going to be watching. It's not Alex Windsor and a gaggle of bitches. Like
Yeah.
it is five legit stars altogether. And like that's where I agree with you. Like in theory, you wouldn't think it would work because there's not, like go back to the inner circle. Hager's the heater, Jericho's the star, Guevara's the prodigy, or Santana and Ortiz are the tag team. They're
Yeah.
the unhinged kind of like muscle. Like you don't need such defined roles here. You've just got five legit stars with a common grievance with the fact that they feel like they've been overlooked.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of thinking for the five women that will face them, Kanji has to be in it, like she just has to.
Yeah.
Rio,
Mhm.
I would like Nightshade to be able to be included,
Mhm.
and I would like Lucia Lee. I know that's like a really big spotlight for someone who is kind of like in storyline like a contender, and you'd never have you like there was no contenders working the copper box last year like Francisco and Josh James,
Yeah.
and Dynamite Lee Dawson and those and like they weren't on the show. But I kind of feel like Lucia one fits in the perfect storyline perfectly. She was attacked when they debuted, and she's been involved ever since. And also like she deserves it from like just putting in the hard work. And then you've got a fifth spot, and that's where you could have your a name, a surprise, Danny
Mhm.
Luna's kind of mystery partner for the group, or it could even be like like Kanji brings in like Emerson Jane or something like that. Someone who we don't associate with Rev Pro,
Yeah.
but fits in with what fans know. The top shaggers tag team of Kanji and Emerson. I feel like there's loads that
Yeah.
can be played with. I'm really
Yeah.
excited for that.
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
one match. There was one match that we didn't really get to touch upon, which I think deserves a nice little shout out, which is Connor Mills and Callum Newman. Um, so I was really surprised. I went on Cage Match earlier because I just wanted to check something, and I basically I geek. I checked to see that this card was up because I know Gadge wasn't at the show, so I was just seeing did somebody time the matches and send it through to Cage Match. Um, and yes, it was there, so I was happy. But I saw the time for Callum Newman and Colin
Mhm.
Mills, and I know that like Mills did triple duty, which is insane on Sunday, like
Yep.
Gravesend, Sutton, and Great Portland Street. But the match came in under 10 minutes. It was like
9 minutes
minutes and something.
56.
Yeah, and I just it's like there's like a little bit of evidence, isn't there, that quantity doesn't mean quality, and short doesn't mean bad because
Yeah.
they put on a great showcase of what those two could do. Like and what it did for me was it was lovely to see Callum Newman back. It was a really good match, like a really good standalone match, but they also left enough on the table for when those two get a rematch at some point down the line and they go 15, 20 minutes. And I feel like that was the perfect thing for this card. And that's like I say, amazing opener, amazing show closing match promo angle, and in between all these really well selected, well paced, well sequenced things. You said
Absolutely.
earlier about the promo angle match. And you said you weren't sure who'd said that. I think it was me that had said it to you, but it's not my thing. So, like, absolute hands up. That is, I heard that from What Culture,
I
Michael
think
Sidgwick.
I might have heard it recently again on What Culture, actually.
Yeah, I've always been a really big fan of Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, and I always used to listen to their AEW previews and reviews. I don't get a chance to as much anymore, just because I'm not as invested in AEW as I used to be. I think it's fair to say. Like, I still really enjoy it. I still watch it every week. I'm still really looking forward to going to watch it. I'm going to go to. I'm not going to All In. Too big for me. Too many people. Not
I
enough
get that. Yeah.
shit eyesight. I can't see anything. I want to. I always say to people, like, when I go to watch the wrestling, I want to be able to tell you afterwards who hit the ropes the hardest, who laid it in the thickest, who I like studying the little details. I couldn't tell you from where I was sat at All In, my 150 quid ticket. I couldn't tell you like if anyone even did a major botch because I couldn't see it. I just remember going home thinking I can't wait to watch it on pay-per-view because I can actually then see what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing All In, but I'm really glad I got tickets to go and watch it in Cardiff because I think it'd be really good fun.
Yeah.
And there'll be lots of people that I'll be seeing for the first time that I'm really looking forward to. But my love of Rev Pro and my obsession with live wrestling has meant that my enjoyment of TV wrestling has just diminished a bit. So I don't get a chance to listen to Sidgwick and Hamflett as much as I used to. But Sidgwick always talked about the trifecta, a great episode, and it is, Rev Pro is episodic wrestling. It is, these are not standalone one-off shows. Every show links into the next. That's why they're all must watch. The trifecta of great match, great promo, great angle. And for me, that's the fact we got that this week, made this show one I'll remember for a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just wonderful show. And yeah, I can't say any more than we've said on it. It was just, it was great. It was everything we needed. The lead up to Summer Sizzler is now in full effect. We've got Coventry coming up with great promo by Michael setting that match up as well. Yeah, Rev Pro's in a really strong position, and we touched on Summer Sizzler last week. Just want to say we realised literally in the days as the tickets were coming out that both of us had seemingly read the tweet incorrectly and thought all the card was dropping on Monday. So we will, of course, react to that on the podcast at the end of the month when the whole card does drop.
I'm not doing that podcast with you.
Oh, you're not, are you? Okay. Yeah.
I'm on holiday, which is why I can't go to Summer Sizzler because
of course it is. Yeah.
So I was dreading that because you would be absolutely marking out for it, and I'd just be sitting here just like, yeah, isn't it gonna be really good that you get to watch that match and I don't, and just be a miserable sod. So I think that's where we're gonna have to rope in a friend.
Absolutely. Well, actually, that week we might do that like as a special one-off because that is going to be the week, Dave, where our What If comes out at the end of the month.
Oh, nice.
So that is the space that's going in there. So yeah, and as Dave mentioned as well, guys, we were going to do a proper copper box predictions, and when we scheduled this all out, we're like, yeah, this will be absolutely fine. We're going to have plenty of time to talk. Next week, our plan was to look at some kind of what if scenarios. People were like, just give us some speculation. And obviously we've mentioned that we're going to do a big what if. And if that goes well, this is something that we'd like to do more often on the channel. But we're going to do a few little minor speculation points and kind of stuff in a little bit of a down week for Rev Pro because no events, rightly so. They're building up to a big month, a big end of month with Coventry coming up. But what we might do is we might touch on kind of the predictions of the remaining bits of the copper box that we see fleshing out because Dave's hit the nail on the head. We've got so much that is planned out already without actually being announced. And I am always happy with that. For me, this is one of the criticisms I sometimes see with AEW. People are like, drop graphics. And matches are being built to. And it's like, cool, as long as I know those matches are coming, I don't care if the match is announced the week
Yeah.
of the show, 2 weeks before. You can see the direction of travel. It's all good. But there are those little matches, and I'm really going to have to think what the Zozaya match can be, because I completely forgot as you were running down that card that Zack Sabre Jr. was already in a match against Hechicero. I need to go back and watch their CMLL match, because apparently incredible. I've acquired it so I can give it a watch, because I've heard it's fantastic. But my first thought was, oh, wouldn't Zack Sabre Jr. and Zozaya be great? That's a down the line match, I think, if there ever was one. But hey, look, that's what we've got coming up. So yeah, in the next few weeks, we're gonna cover these bits off. We're gonna cover off, like I said, I might just do a standalone myself, just jump on for 5 minutes and run down the card quickly for Summer Sizzler, give like an instant reaction, and this is what we're thinking. Yeah, and Dave mentioned there is going to be a week as well where Dave is going to be on holiday. He's not letting everything Rev Pro consume his life, and this podcast. Oh, he's going to be away, so we've got a friend who we are just working on some details of when we're going to time it all. But we're going to bring a friend in who comes to the Southampton shows and get him on board and do a preview of the 1865 show. A lot of shows coming up, a lot going on with Rev Pro, but just a fun time.
We just need to work out his fee, don't we? I imagine he's going to want quite the fee for his time, because he's a big get for us on this podcast.
Absolutely. You think Ron Burgundy's kind of a big deal? Well, this guy's got nothing. Ron Burgundy's got nothing on this guy. And the problem is, he's gonna bloody love that, isn't he? He's gonna dine out on that. But anyway, guys, you will find out in a few weeks who that is. And yeah, Dave, shall we call it there, mate? Because we keep saying every week we are gonna stick to our time, and we've increased every week. We're now, as I'm looking at this, at 1 hour 46 minutes. So, Dave,
it's currently 13 minutes past 9. And I know full well that I'm going to come off the call, I'm going to leave the room, and I'm going to get a little look from my wife that says, "You were meant to put the girls to bed 13 minutes ago." And I shall say, "Sorry, darling."
Right, well, Dave, before we then wrap up, where can the people find you?
DaveTheMark.com. DaveTheMark.com, Dave the Mark on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. All my show photos go up, interviews with wrestlers, previews, reviews of the shows, some interesting articles coming out over the next couple of weeks without where the shows are missing. So I'm going to do a bit of a backstory to everything you need to know about Luke Jacobs and Michael Oku, point you to some like good matches to go back and get to the story. A nice little bit on the Cutthroat Collective. Interview with Golden Boy Santos comes out next weekend, and got an interview with JJ Gale lined up for the week after as well. So like loads of good stuff coming out. Just keep your eyes on your socials. Give me a follow, and hopefully there'll be something you like there.
Wonderful stuff. I mean, how can there not be something you like there with such a wide array of stuff coming out, Dave? Guys, for me, you can find me at Cromulent Fellow. You can find at Cromulent Wrestling or at Cromulent Res, WRES on various platforms. The graphic will be up at the end. Like, comment, share, drop us notes, anything. Just show us you're listening. Let us know what your thoughts are. And Dave, until next week, mate, we're out of here.
Cheers, man.